What are the differences between Nicole and Lucy? One is poor, but try to be rich. The other one is actually rich, but try to be poor. One wake up at 4 in the morning, try to hustle her way out of the debt, but still in debt. The other one also wakes up at 4 in the morning, spending hours to set up her hair and doing makeup and giving herself some puff of expensive perfume, and becomes a billionaire. And you should definitely follow her morning routine to become a billionaire. And even if you fail, the worst thing that could happen to you is become a cute anime girl, just like Lucy. So there's nothing to lose here. Lucy and Nicole are the top tier support, and being an A rank doesn't stop them from being so. So you definitely don't want to sleep on them, or else you might gonna get in debt or maybe in jail. And when we combine them together, they would carry your account so hard that they could get you out of the US national debt. So somebody in the JP side used Lucy and Nicole duo on the Evelyn hyper carry team. He got 50,000 score out of 47,000 damage on the Typhon Destroyer, 45,000 on the Marionette with 40,000 damage, and 53 seconds on the current RYU defense on the first half. And I think that numbers alone explain the competency of this team. And the original videos of the whole run is at the description. If you watch my videos on the tier list, you would know that this is the strongest free-to-play team, even more so than the Lucy Colada team. And it seems like out of all the viable choice, Colada seems to be the weakest characters to pair with Evelyn. And Colada doesn't really perform on the levels that people expected her to be when she pairs with Evelyn. Despite her fantastic capability to stun the enemy quickly, she lacks of stun multiplier and the buffing capability. She becomes kind of a lackluster, but I still want to point out that she is still a good option for Evelyn if you don't have much choice. And I think the reason is because Lucy and Nicole just simply give better number than Colada. Like Lucy buffing capability is as comparable as Caesar when she's on her signature Wenjin at max refinement, but of course Caesar would be better if she's with her signature Wenjin. And as for Nicole, in my personal opinion, she actually works like stunner without stunning, giving 40% defense shred every time when she releases her skill, her chain attacks, or the ultimate. And if you max out the refinement of her signature weapon, it would scale even more from 15 to 25%. So how did he manage to get the score this high? But I would like to explain the current deadly assault. It is highly favorable to the Evelyn. We got this dazing force buff, it gives 15% more daze and increased chain attacks by 60%, and every time when you use chain attacks, it would increase 10% attacks up to 40%, so that explains the abnormally high damage. And how did he get more damage on a fire resistant enemy than the one that has no fire resistant? And that leads to the characteristic of this boss. So as you can see, he do the parry to this boss for like 3 times and get 44 days out of it. I personally believe that the calculation of parrying is a mix of fixed number and your character's stat. Like let's say if I use Chinyi Harumasa team and parry the exact same pattern that he does, I would get 48 days. And when I use this exact parrying method with this random level 40 Nekomata and level 10 Anton team, it get 40 days. So the days that enemy get is partially fixated to the form of the attack that they are doing. Some of the attack would give you less days, and some of it would give you a tremendous amount of it. Like the third hit of this machine give you almost 40 days, and you couldn't really do it on the Marionette, so he could stun the enemy frequently without the stunner in this particular stage. But in the other way around, there are also mobs that is straight up parrying trap. It would give you very little days and waste all your resources on parrying, and he kind of capitalized on this perfectly. So basically playing this team, you wanna use Lucy's skill and swap off. I don't need to hold your hand for you to learn that, right? She's basically skill and forget types of characters. More often than not, people would teach you to always use whole skill or pre-buff it when you get into the match, but for this specific run, I don't see him doing that, and mainly it's because of Lucy's Mindskip 6 would already make your buff last long enough, so you do still want a whole skill if your Lucy is not at Mindskip 6. And I think the reason he doesn't do the pre-buff tech is because Lucy's skill actually deals a lot of daze. She's like support but builds in with some stunner capability, so he saves the skill for the stun. So these are the consideration when you are playing Lucy. And as for Nicole, you do want to use Nicole's skill before you use chain attack to get all the defense shred, or maybe you can do it after the chain attacks, and that lead to the next tip. So we are at the training room, but take place in the Taylor the Private Jet concert, but the blondie on the stage is actually hot. So in general rotation, you wanna debuff it with Nicole first so that you get all the defense shred from Nicole. So you pop her skill here, then follow with chain attacks, nothing special. And now I'm going to show you guys the advanced one. So I use Evelyn's special chain attack first, then I swap cancel into Nicole. So that way majority of the damage would get the defense shred while saving tremendous amounts of time. And if you wanna take it to the next level, you wanna add Lucy into the recipe. It does need a little bit time to practice it, but it's actually easier than it looks. Just like the last tech, you start off with these special chain attacks and cancel swap into Lucy and tap the skill. Then cancel swap again into Nicole and use the skill. So that way you get all the buff in one single sequences. But just keep in mind that swap cancel doesn't work on the ordinary chain attack from the stun or the Astra ultimate. So you do want to use Nicole's skill first in that case. Now let's move on to the buff and the build. I've talked about the buff before. It is highly favorable to Evelyn. The build that he used is also pretty standard. I'm not gonna translate all of that. This is the skill, 4 pieces woodpecker, an attack 2 set with signature vengeance, Astro Void 4 set and 2 pieces woodpecker on Lucy with his signature weapon. And here is the main stat that he used. Nicole with swing jazz 4 set, 2 pieces freedom blue. And this is the main stat. And the most general way people talks about this in JP side, 50% crit rate on the support is the way to go. But I would like to point out that min-maxing your support into a DPS is the last thing you wanna do. You may wanna do it after you max out your DPS, so don't prioritize this. So he got in without Lucy's pre-buff, then groups the mob with Nicole, stun this group of mob with Lucy, then finish off with Evelyn with 2 stack of woodpecker. And parrying is one of the most powerful thing in the game because it could charge up your ult really quickly and to stun the enemy here. And now he got his ultimate up but refused to release the armpit unless he applied the Nicole's debuff first with 1 stack of woodpecker. And follow with chain attack immediately, along with swap cancel into Nicole's ultimate, so chain attack before Nicole's ult also works as well. Ultimate with Lucy for the buff and impact. And you do want to charge up your stack and the energy for the stun window, so you could deal more damage that way. And here you don't want to use Evelyn to start the chain attacks. You could swap into other unit to launch the chain attacks. He launched chain attack with Nicole, getting all the swing jazz buff. Back to Nicole into Evelyn. Then basic and skill here for the woodpecker buff. And finish off the enemy with the ultimate. And yeah, that's the end of the video, which has nothing to do with what I'm about to say. It's about the response to my last video. I do still think that swing jazz is the best gear, but I thought it would be about 8% better than woodpecker and the hormone punks, but I messed up with the math. Turns out it should be about 3% better from what I could extrapolate it, and even if I'm wrong, it should be about 3% worse than woodpecker and hormone punks. I could see woodpecker and hormone punks would have higher peaks when you could execute the rotation correctly, but let's don't pretend that we are the combo machine. We wouldn't make any mistake during the rotation, and I know what a good rotation is like. You kind of have to run the same stage for like over 20 to 30 times in order to get that ideal rotation. But for majority of the player who just want to get an S rank and get out, swing jazz should do significantly better in that case, because you literally have 0 chance to mess up. And even if you could perform the rotation perfectly, the benefit that you got from the woodpecker and the hormone punks wouldn't be a game changer either. Somebody in the comments said he ran the test and 3 of these 4 sets feels roughly the same. I really appreciate the time that he spent into testing. I know that is very time consuming, even with the rough one. And even if somebody actually ran the test and actually proved that I'm wrong, I will admit it, but I wouldn't apologize, because the idea of stuff using swing jazz wouldn't get brought up to light without the discussion. And I think it's a compelling idea to talk about. But I do think that people ain't actually mad at my content, but the thumbnail and the titles, it does look clickbaity, but I genuinely thought it is actually better. And from what I learned from other YouTubers, if you make mistake in the video, don't edit it out, or else audience gonna think that you're guilty or you have something to hide. So I would just leave it out there. And I also made a proper response there. You could disagree with me and have a rational discussion with me, but to write it off as completely trash based on one thing that I got wrong is just straight up dishonest. This is my last response to the previous video. The whole situation did get my heart racing a little bit, but it's really not a big deal after I think about it. And I still got like 80% like ratio because people who actually watch my content for a period of time knows that I don't lie and being genuine in the content and being genuine with my information, and I really appreciate that. But the comment section does seems like a war zone, not gonna lie, but anyway, see ya guys.